Thank you. Everybody did really well. This isn't working, is it? This isn't working?
We can hear you, right?
Can you hear me? Okay, hang on, shout into this. So Ken, my question's for you. I was just watching a video this morning on Lobby for Good done by Doug Owens regarding the sale of the port shares. I'm a little of a mixed bag on that topic, to be honest, and I'd be interested in your views.
Right. How it works is that the Regional Council owns 54.3% of the Port of Tauranga shares. It's a very valuable portfolio, no question of that. How it came is that when the old harbour boards were dissolved and the Port Council was set up following the 89 legislation, the ownership of the ports was vested in various regional councils around the country. That was at the start of regional councils, and that's the way they're going to be funded. Most councils around the country sold them off. Waikato initially had 25% of Ports of Tauranga. They sold their shares off early in the piece. What we did is we, unlike Auckland that kept governance over the port, and that's why Auckland Port hasn't worked so well, we put it at arm's length so that our shareholding is through Quayside Holdings, which the Regional Council, on your behalf, owns 100% of. Now, the whole purpose of that is to be an endowment fund for the long-term benefit of the region, and that's what it should be. Okay? So what any investment portfolio, you've got to keep a balance. You don't put all your eggs in one basket. And we had top advice, top economists, top accounting firms, they all advised us that there's a terrible imbalance with this investment fund because 80% of your investments is in one company, the Ports of Tauranga. And you know, all companies, you could have a tsunami that did damage to the port. You know, there's all manners of scenarios that could affect that. So the whole idea is to have a balanced portfolio. So what the council has now passed and approved is a divestment down from 54.3% to a minimum holding of 28%. And that will release considerable capital. And Quayside's investments, they have other investments, even though 80% is in the port. The port's return over the last 15, 20 years has been about 4 or 5%. The other investments have been about 7%. So by having a more broader investment strategy, we can have a much wealthier endowment fund for the benefit of the region. Here's the other thing. You must not consume the nest egg. In other words, you only distribute the earnings off that investment in perpetuity. And I think that John Scrimmager raised a very valid point. To actually use a big chunk of that earnings to subsidise rates is actually disguising your OPEX inefficiencies, in my view. And there's a strong argument to say we shouldn't be doing that. And the more I think about it, the more I look about it, I would propose that no, that nest egg is for the benefit of the region. We should not be disguising rates on the basis of the earnings of the port company. So I think you made a very valid point there, John.
Thank you.
If you're the chairman of the Regional Council, you're almost guaranteed to be on the port, one of the directors of the port company. Can you tell us what your ambitions are for the port, which is in serious trouble at the moment?
I wouldn't say the port's in serious trouble. It's actually a very successful company and it's done very well, and it's critical to not just the regional economy, to the national economy. It handles something like 60% of our exports, all our production from the land, whether it's forestry, milk, kiwi fruit, all through the port. So it's critical. The real issue is the Stella Passage, which has been with the Environment Court now for about 15 years. And it's not as if they want to extend further reclamations, not at all. All they need is extra berthage, and it's actually just infilling on Sulphur Point back down where the existing port is. The fact is we've been turning ships away. That's costing the New Zealand economy big time. Ships have been turned away, and kiwi crops and other crops have actually not got to market because of that restriction. And there's frustration as hell with the way the courts have used the RMA process, and it's not too dissimilar to the container terminal here actually. It's just incredible. There's nothing worse than uncertainty for business, and that needs resolution quickly. And there are elements that have sort of been using it as leverage to get payment and directorships on the port company. I think that's wrong in principle. So what they applied for with the new fast track legislation is to go on the fast track. That was accepted by government, but then the same parties have actually lodged an appeal against using the fast track, and that's before the courts at the moment. The judge has indicated he won't be making a decision until about March, but every month it's costing the region and it's costing the New Zealand economy a lot of money. It's very important to have that port operating efficiently. And it's not about the stuff before the courts, it's not about the environmental issues, they've all been resolved. It's actually just about technical processes of consultation and all sorts of manner of stuff which the RMA can sort of indulge itself in for decades while you hold up what I believe needs to happen for the national good.
And what would you do with the containers?
Well, New Zealand, I used to be the CEO of the Road Transport Forum, which is the trucking freight industry, so I've been deeply involved with the container business. And look, we export our goods in containers. All of our imports comes in containers. The challenge is that the imports come into a different place where the exports. So we've got to move containers around the country, many of them empty, to reposition them to load our exports. And it's a question of how we manage those containers. Do I think the proposal here is that a terminal is an appropriate site? No, I don't. I think that's silly. There's far better, you know, the whole site is wrong for purpose. So therefore, I'm not against containers, it's just a question of dealing with them and cleaning them and whatever in appropriate places. But we are dependent upon containers as a trading nation, no doubt about that.